RWBY Volume 8, Chapter 11, Risk, has officially released, so let me break it down for you. So the Grimm, like the Backstreet Boys, are back. I have no idea where they all came from so fast. I thought they got straight up nuked and wiped out for at least a few hours, but hey, you know, probably the whole threat to nuke the kingdom wasn't exactly the best mood lifter. Meanwhile, with the Aesops, they're all playing the role of the audience last episode, discussing Ironwood's nuke threat. It's a good idea, it's a terrible idea, well, I don't really know. Was it a bluff? Apparently not. Ironwood demands everyone take the bomb and put it in place. This doesn't sit well with Marrow, who begins barking out at everyone's willingness to follow through, questioning everyone's morals. And then he himself decides to make a dog joke, saying his rank is actually a collar. Get it? 'Cause he's a dog. And then he decides to go for a walk, but Ironwood has other plans. Instead, he wants to play fetch with a bullet. Before that happens, Winter steps in and says, no, bad boy, don't rub your butt on the carpet. And then she takes him to the brig. I think you're gonna have a hard time finding a cell to put him in. But either way, I really liked Winter here. I mean, obviously that's what they want to go for, and she'll probably wind up taking command of Atlas or whatever after they kill Ironwood or throw him in jail or whatever. But I just like the feeling of her pretty much being like, all right, I'll handle this. Jesus Christ, man, what are you, insane? Do you want to get shot? But at the same time, it's a little late to start protecting Ironwood from himself. Usually it's before they escalate, you know, before anything drastic happens. He's already made the genocide threat. And I know he didn't set up the camera and lighting in that room by himself, Winter and the Aesops. What, am I supposed to believe these camera angles just come naturally? Nuh-uh, production quality like that requires a highly coordinated team. So Marrow, you're just as much to blame here. In terms of Marrow's message, I don't really know about it. Largely in reference to the Aesops as a whole. Obviously the whole nuke the city is dumb, stupid, ugly plan. But he pesters the morals of the others and gets into a spat with them. But literally Elm says, I don't like this either, but the top priority is, and then he cut her off and is like, do you even know what you're fighting for? Yeah, God forbid your big dramatic speech lets people finish their goddamn sentences that tell you what it is exactly that they're fighting for. I can't have imagined a more inconvenient time to cut off a sentence in this scene. Also, you know, and this is the crux of the entire franchise, but I would have liked to see some sort of backstory with the Aesops just to know why some of them are so loyal, particularly Harriet. You could chalk it up to it just being the military and you're not supposed to speak out, you know, insubordination. Harriet's channeling her inner Sarge. But I also have a feeling that they're just gonna be like, well, Harriet's just insane as well, because that makes for great characters. Anyway, then there was Ren and Nora. Ren firstly has to apologize for doing the thing that literally the entire audience praised him for. You know, because everyone in universe is upset that he thought differently. But anyway, on the never-ending journey of will they, won't they, the answer is inevitably, no, they won't. A genuinely surprising moment, but one I actually really liked. I was just waiting for them to hook up the moment Jean left the room, and I was thinking to myself, oh, this again, something that should have happened 4 years ago. But by the end of it, it left me pleasantly surprised as to the execution of it all. Nora has always loved Ren, but doesn't know who she is without him, and so she wants to find that out. Meanwhile, Ren just uncovered his true feelings and decided to confess, but it was too late. It seems like a great direction for particularly Nora to go on her own journey of self-discovery, and be more than just the quirky one who hits things with a hammer. At times I thought the scene was pretty corny, particularly in just the dialogue and what they were saying. It didn't feel the most natural at times, but at the end of it all, it left a way better taste in my mouth than it didn't. Now time to get Team Juniper out of the fucking story. Get rid of them. Volume 9, they better be gone. Anyway, back with the main characters, they don't know what to do. They yell at Emerald like literal children. And then Oscar has to step in as the main character and yet again calm everyone down. RWBY runs off and Yang follows and they have a scene. It turns out the man inside the Hound was a silver-eyed warrior, not just a gray-eyed man. Sometimes you just don't know with this show. So you know what that means. Summer Rose is probably one of those things. Probably. And God, do I actually hate that decision. Like, one of the only bits of information we ever knew about Summer Rose was that she was dead. Actually dead. Dead. Not alive, not part of the mortal realm, not in some Grimm suit where they could still speak English and breathe, but RIP in peace. And you know, that may be the case. She might have been turned into a grimm thing and then was killed. But even still, I think even putting a person inside the grimm was a bad decision to begin with. Like, if Summer Rose was turned into a grimm and was subsequently killed, it just seems kind of weird. Like, why introduce this element of the story if she's not gonna show up again? So it just makes you think that she's going to reappear at some point again as a grimm. And it sounds like the most unoriginal cliche setup to, oh, my dead parent is actually still alive. I like Summer being Salem more than this. I like her being the moon more than being the silver-eyed grimm. Summer Rose should have just been a figure who was dead, as they sort of made it out to be in the beginning. But as for the scene as a whole, Yang tells RWBY all about risks and how she's trying her best. They talk about Summer and how she took a risk with a hard maybe at the end of it. And I had to stop myself here and ask, why didn't this scene work for me? And you see, I think it's chemistry, and they don't have it. When two characters speak who have only gotten to know each other in recent years, you expect things to be a certain way. But when two characters have known each other longer than you've seen them on screen, you expect a different dynamic entirely. More playfulness, easier heart-to-hearts, busting each other's balls. A natural sense of history. And yet RWBY and Yang don't evoke those same feelings for me. And the only thing they need to do is feel like siblings. When Winter and Weiss interact, they manage to get that sense of sibling dynamic from me. But whenever RWBY and Yang speak, it's like they've never interacted when they were younger. The majority of what Yang says to RWBY here, any character could have said. The whole speech about taking risks is not what makes Yang special in this interaction. So it's what makes her special that should have had her stand out. And yeah, she does bring up Summer, but that's it. Similarly to the scene RWBY had with Blake earlier in the season, Yang doesn't really say anything. I looked up to Summer, then she took a risk and died. Any details about who Summer is, why she looked up to her, and potentially any similarities she can draw between RWBY and her mom are never stated. The only parallel she draws is that they both took a risk, but it's a very hollow statement to make because Yang doesn't know what Summer was doing. She just assumes she took some sort of risk and died in the process. You'd think Yang would know how to do this considering that her father did the exact same thing to her in Volume 4. This was a great meaningful scene with what felt like father and daughter. Tai does draw parallels between Yang and Raven, particularly in the way that they act in a very positive light. He never touches on things that might dampen the mood, instead he lifts them both up by speaking of the strengths that they have in common.
Well, sorry I remind you of her.
Don't be. Raven was great in so many ways. Her strength, her ambition, her dedication to whatever cause she thought was worth fighting for. I'm proud of how much of her I see in you.
The writers are going for the one-on-one scenes, which is always better than not having them to begin with, but this is twice now that both scenes this volume have resulted in very hollow and otherwise meaningless interactions. Then there was Qrow and Robyn. As expected, Qrow is looking to slit Ironwood's throat and bathe in his blood. And I tell you what, this scene almost had me, as this was one of the few times I actually really liked Robyn. She calms him down, gets him to reflect on how he's acting, telling him to stop lying that what he's doing is for anyone other than himself right now. She speaks of Clover and how he was a great person, all the compliments all around. Qrow, oh, you're so handsome, so determined. Sound a little bit different, but you're a great huntsman. And then it dropped the ball right at the end when she says, you were fighting for what was right. Not what you thought was right, what was right. And that is the worst thing you can have any character say in anything, really. It's the overlying problem with this arc throughout it all. The idea of telling the audience what is right and what is wrong, when in reality, it should all be a very ambiguous and unclear situation. The Aesops, even before Ironwood went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, were still being treated like what they were doing was wrong. It's not the show's job to tell you what is right and what is wrong, but to simply tell you what is. To have you understand exactly why every character is making the decisions that they are making, not the morality of what they're doing. And this bit of dialogue just showcases exactly what it is the problem with how this arc has been being told. It's telling you what to think. Anyway, Penny's virus is getting the better of her and she tries to fly away. That is until Jean boosts her aura, which makes her more like a human, I guess. And this subdues the virus. Emerald also says she switched sides. Never say that again, show. Writers take notes. Never say a character switched sides in the actual show. That is an out-of-universe term. Because you know what that means? It only confirms what everyone who's watching already knows. That there's only two sides. Good side and bad side. White and black. No gray area. No area for Emerald to exist with her own motivation and path. Just, since I'm no longer on Salem's side, I'm now on your side. Disgusting line. Anyway, Ozpin decides to tell a very vague fairy tale which doesn't really make any sense unless you've probably purchased and read one of their books, and then speaks about the risk of trusting. I don't know why trusting Whitley was a hard thing, he never did anything wrong ever. To which RWBY comes up with the idea to bring Penny to the vault as a risk. And probably kill Ironwood there. Was this a good episode? It had its moments, particularly with Winter and Ren and Nora, but it's unlikely that they'll ever learn from their mistakes for the rest of this volume, and instead you just have to hope that they learn for the future volumes. So, get your drinks ready. Anyway, moral of the episode is Elm can't believe there's another dominant woman on the squad.